what
This
we wanted to talk
conference will
about
now be
today.
recorded.
Sorry.
And as we were going through yesterday, we had like a list of topics, and then we got moving more and migrating more towards doing work from home during COVID, and like how our lives have changed and how that affects us as women. And so I think this will be a really, really fun session. I'm excited to get into these topics because I think they're so pertinent to everybody, obviously within the last year, and we've survived a year of this. But we're also very, very excited to have Miss Belinda Allen, who's a good friend and mentor to everybody on my team, that's been running this event. And Belinda's been so supportive. She's been on all of our different meetups and has spoken out, and obviously she's beloved in the community. So we're very, very excited that she
Oh,
decided to join us here in March. And a little bit about Belinda, I'll let her introduce herself, but she is also an MVP of business applications. She used to be heavy in the Dynamics GP space, but obviously now is more into Power BI. And Belinda, you want to give a little bit of intro to yourself?
yeah, actually, I am a data platform MVP, not a biz apps. Power
Oh,
BI,
okay.
we're like this weird mix. We're a data platform because of our relationship with SQL Server and SQL Server Analysis, well, mostly SQL Server Analysis Server, and which is where the paginated reports come from, and our ish come from ish. And so, but we also are part of the biz apps community, kind of, but technically we're data platform folks. So it's a little bit weird. So I used to be a biz apps, although a couple for the people in the MVP community, Pervin and Chuck think I'm a biz apps person too. So they just keep grabbing my hand and dragging me along, and I just keep running with them. So have a good time. But yeah, I've been in MVP for 9 years. I'm finishing up my 9th year. So since we all got the word we're being renewed next year, that's one good thing with COVID. I will make my goal of 10 years. So if it doesn't happen after next year, unless I get kicked out of the program between now and July 1, I'm excited that I've met the goal of 10 years, because I wanted another one for you guys newies. When you've been there for 5 years, you get this blue one. And
Wow.
so I want another blue one. So
It looks really pretty with the colors stacked, so I can
yeah,
understand that.
kind of a stupid goal, but for a reason to have a goal, because I want another blue circle. But, but that's me. I'm a little bit nuts. So yeah, I started my journey in technology in thank you, Hal. I started my journey in technology with Dynamics GP, and that's actually I spent the first 5 years as an MVP as a GP MVP. And so, because of just my natural curiosity of and adoration of all things reporting, I gravitated toward Excel and did a lot of stuff in Excel. And then the Power BI, when it first came out, which was very different than what it is today, it used to just be part of SharePoint. I gravitated toward that. And then someone called me up from Microsoft and said, "Hey, you need to join our team." They had a team that kind of gave advice and opinions, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm in. And so I got to play with so I've been involved in the what is now Power BI since the very beginning. So that's been pretty exciting for me. So that's kind of it then. And so this year I've kind of made a switch in 2021 in what my attempt is. So I'm all about diversity this year, trying to help bring diversity into our community, into community leadership. And when it comes to IT, diversity is women, regardless of color. Uh, and then when I people of color, regardless of gender. And when I'm talking people of color, I'm particularly meaning Black and Brown people, Black people and and Hispanic people. That would be my next goal. The LGBTQIA, um, uh, they're a little more difficult because you don't necessarily that, especially for me, because I don't think about people's gender or sexual orientation when I meet them. I just never have. And so I don't think about, hey, you look like you're an LGBTQIA person. I want to get you involved. So it's a little harder for me to figure out who that person is. But I'd like to see more of those people in the community, mostly because I don't want them to have a hard time when they're in the community. Um, and then also people with disabilities. And disabilities can mean a large variety of things. There was one MVP summit where the first day, and I think I might have talked about this at other MVPs, and I'm already off topic at introducing myself, I'm sorry. Never give me a microphone openly and freely. But one MVP got up, he was a developer, a professional developer, and he was blind. And watching him, he showed us some of the tools he used to develop, and he was phenomenal. And so that, and then there's also certain kinds of, I have to just use, for lack of a better word, disability, that uh, also, people with like certain kinds of autism make great people in our community. And, let's face it, IT people are a little weird anyhow. So we all have our own little quirks. So they typically should fit right in with us because we're all a little bit nuts. And a lot of us are hermits. So that works out really well. But so that's my big thing this year. So I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I started in technology in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I spent most of my time in New York City, and my husband retired, and we moved back to Charleston, moved back to South Carolina. So for those of you who are dealing with snow, it is 79 degrees here right now. So that's why we moved back. So that's the long definition of me, who I am. Sorry, Shannon.
I think that actually was probably the shortest amount of time I've heard you talk. So good job, Belinda.
Probably so.
And just so you guys know, Belinda was actually my trainer in Jet Reports, and that's how the first time I met her. And gosh, that was a long while ago. But I was just so impressed with, the way she runs a room, and she's a great trainer for those that are on the call looking for Power BI training. She's amazing as a trainer and in the community. But we're very, very thankful to hear, along with Steve Endo, who's on, who we've talked about his efforts to get more women into the MVP community, especially for Microsoft, but just women in tech in general. I think that what you're doing, to help minorities and women, it's just absolutely amazing. And so I know Kristen and Mary and I mean, this was a perfect fit for you to come on today and talk with us. So very happy you're here. Yeah, and just leading into that, we have some fun topics that we're going to kind of go round robin on today to talk about as far as it relates to working from home. We were talking about yesterday, like kind of a topic that we want to talk about, and work from home came up, and really because I know that Mary, Kristen, and I, and we'll talk from our experience, we've been so stressed. We've been talking together as a group and just saying how stressed we've been the last few months as things are getting busier in the tech community. It seems like more and more people want to do projects, and travel's picking up, and like just so many things are changing so rapidly. And then we've also been working from home for so long, and I've been traveling a little bit. I'll talk about that, but we thought this would be a really good topic to kind of explore, just because so many people are dealing with it, and like how we've adapted in this crazy COVID work from home world. So we're going to kind of go around the room and talk about, our first question today is, what has been the biggest obstacle working from home in the past year? So we know that we've all been working from home, but for us personally, what has been the biggest obstacle? So I'm going to start with you, Belinda, if you want to let us know what has been your biggest obstacle this year working from home.
Yeah, okay. So I'm kind of in a to answer for the question directly, there really hasn't been one because I work from home. I have not worked in an office in 15 years, 12 years, something like that. It's just not, so I've been working from home from a long time, but I have to say, I do remember when I first started working from home, the biggest obstacle was for me to not think about like doing laundry or a task like that. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna go run and throw these clothes in. And then you sit back. Because every time you get a phone call or stop to do an email, it you lose more than just the actual time spent because you got to get right back where you were in that same brain wave, that same thought process. And so learning how to be able to separate, hey, I'm at work, is probably the biggest thing. Although still I do contend with, I'm going to pick up my mother-in-law. Um, she forgets that I am working, and so she'll call and make some comment that she doesn't mean, but it comes across like, oh, you're just sitting around doing nothing. So I thought I'd call you and ask you to do this. And I'm like, I've been working 12 hours. I'm tired. I'm not doing that. And but that would be it. But it's really no different for me. I've been working from home a long time. So I'll pass the question on to you guys now.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. And I think a lot of people think because you're home, like you've got this extra free time. And in my mind, I try to think I do, but obviously we don't have any free time. We're
Mhm.
just doing the same thing at home. So yeah, it's a really good topic. Mary, what about you? I know you have young kids. So what has been your biggest obstacle working from home this last year?
Just all of the interruptions. I feel like sometimes it's enough to make you feel like a crazy person. I know Belinda wakes up really early as well. I tend to find my most productive hours are between like 4:30 to like 7, right? And then the house wakes up, and then between like 7 and 8:30 is usually a wash of the day. So again, even though it's like 12, right? It's not like I've been working for all these hours. Like there was many interruptions in that. And then we also got a puppy. So it was like work from home, puppy from home, which is like just having a brand new baby, and trying to handle everything. And then, my husband will come home and he'll be like, well, you didn't get the dishes done, or, I mean, not something that true, but it's like, just I can't do everything, I'm being interrupted every 5 minutes. Maybe I'm sitting upstairs for 12 plus hours, but that does not mean that I got to work for 12 plus hours. Like, don't be fooled about
If
what
you're
actually
getting up at 4 in the morning, you and I clearly have very different definitions of what starting early means.
happened. But yeah, it's kind of what it's been like for me. And I mean, I have one son, he's 12, and he's been absolutely epic and amazing throughout this entire thing. And he's old enough too, where like he does he just stuck for me too, right? Like it's not just like this like give, 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 but he's like happy to like give back as well. And so I call it room service, and I order like room service from him as well, and it like gives him something to do. And I'm like, I don't think you can burn the house down. Like I'm upstairs, but like I really could use a glass of water, and I got back-to-back meetings, so I'll send him like recipes on how to create like a protein shake. And so it's been nice to get to spend time with him as well. But that's I guess kind of been my mixed
That's
experience.
a that's a pretty inventive little trick there, Mary. I might have to try that on one of my kids.
I highly recommend it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and disruptions, 100%. That's been very, very challenging. I don't know about anyone else that gets Amazon, but being on a call like this, and then, the Amazon driver or the lawnmower or whoever decides to show up at your house that wouldn't normally be at your office has also been interesting for me. What about you, Kristen?
I'm still hung up on the room service. I mean, Mary, it never fails. You always say something on these calls that just blow my mind. And I, my brother-in-law is here this week, and I mentioned to him today, I'm on back-to-back calls all day. If you make lunch, make something for me. And he did. He made me a hot dog, but then he put it in the fridge. He didn't even bring it in to me. So I was like, what's up with that? But I but I think like the biggest obstacle for me is young kids, right? I have an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and um, we limit their device time. They have these timers on their phones and on their iPads, and when the time is up, they're coming to me and they're like, "Mom, put the code in, and I'm like on a call. I think that's like the hardest thing for me is just, keeping them out of the office. But yeah, I mean, it's a struggle no matter what. That's just one of them. We all have probably 100 more working from home, obstacles.
To play
So
on Mary's room service thing, Kim Congleton wrote something in there because she and I were on the call the other day, and I wanted my husband to fill up my coffee. So I literally did this, and you could hear her laughing in the background. Alexa, make an announcement.
What's the announcement?
Bring me a glass of water, please.
Announcing.
Bring me a glass of water, please. And my husband usually shows up. I'm just kidding.
Amazing.
It's like a live demo.
That's amazing. Using Alexa.
Yeah.
Love
Make those announcements, and he came in with the coffee pot.
cool.
Oh my goodness. And Christina, she said she has 7-year-old twins. Oh, bless. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's very, very difficult. I think for us, we were pretty fortunate in Tennessee that our school went back to in-person school. But then there was times where it was in-person and hybrid and just figuring all of that out on top of, the noise with the dog and people coming in and out. And I don't really have doors on my office. But I feel like, I don't know about you girls, but I feel like it's just become the new normal to have a kid in the background or a dog or someone barking or whatever the case may be. Like, it's just normal now where, at the beginning, I feel like back in March and April of last year, it was like, shut your dog up, shut your kid up. And now people are like, oh, bring your baby on the conference call. So we actually have a client. The dad has the baby at home during the day and he's got the baby in his lap, and that's like the new normal. So I feel like everybody's adapted pretty well, but I still, I still get anxiety like when my house is loud and I'm on a webinar like this. So my
Look what
dog's
just
pounding in
appeared,
the
by the way. My husband just brought this to me.
background.
It's a glass
It
of ice water
worked.
with crushed
It worked.
ice. Too. Yeah.
Oh, Christina, you gotta try that with your 7-year-olds. They can make you water. It can make you water. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I didn't even think about the announce feature because I've used that before with Alexa to get my kids to come downstairs. So I'll have to try that one out. Well, that's a fun topic. So the next one, I think relates kind of what we were talking to already, but we were talking yesterday as we were prepping for this about how I've noticed over the last year how the boundaries of work hours versus home hours has really changed in the last year. So, people are like, oh, well, you could do this on a Saturday because you have nothing else to do. Where are you going to go? Or, you could stay on meetings till 7 o'clock at night because you're at home. And so I feel like things have changed in a work environment. So it's been very difficult to balance, work home life and saying, okay, at 5 o'clock, I'm done, get off my computer, and go do what I need to do. It was very, very difficult, especially last year when I was home all the time. So how do you balance work home life in this remote working environment? And Kristen, I'll let you start with this one.
I don't do a very good job with this. I see my boss is on the call. I know I talk to her all the time about this, but like, my husband had to tell me I'm working too much. Like, I'm at my desk in the evening, I'm at my desk on the weekends. So I feel like I'm not very good at it, right? But I've tried over the past, I don't know, like month and a half to be better about it. And for me, we're on deadlines. We have lots of projects going on. Like, people are demanding things of us, and if I'm sitting, the kids are sitting watching TV, it's like I could be more productive at my desk than watching TV and just kind of lounging around. So it's a big mind shift. And I think if I didn't have my kids and my husband telling me that I work too much, I probably would work too much. You know what I mean? So, but I think
I have the same problem. I know you and I have talked about this one, and I'm the same way. I'm like, I could be watching, a YouTube channel with my kids and they like to watch all these goofy YouTubes, or I could be, putting hours towards a project and getting something knocked out. And it's hard. It's hard to tell yourself like there's a boundary or to relax. And I know you deal with that a lot too. Yeah, it's a good point. What about you, Mary?
So, it's funny. Sometimes I think that I'm doing good because I used to be gone out of the house, like working, whether it was like a regular job or whether I was traveling for work. And, then I'm at home and I'm like, I think I'm doing good. Like I'm home now. Because one time my son was like, it would really be nice if you were home whenever I got home from school. And I was like, oh yeah, sorry, bud. Like mom's just never going to have that type of job. Like that's just not going to happen. So then working from home, I'm like, oh, I'm home now. Like, aren't you excited with how much I'm here? And he was like, yeah, but you're up in your room all day. And he's like, all you do is work. And he's 12 now, so now he's got like these side comments. They're not quite disrespectful, but he's like testing the boundaries to see how funny he can be before he gets like threatened. So, he'll say something and then it's like, but you work. Everything's about like working. So whenever I hear it from him, it's kind of an indicator to me that my balance must be off, right? It's trying to figure out like those priorities because I missed so much of my son's life whenever he was like first born and for like the first 3 years because I was going to school full time and I was working full time and I was doing it all by myself and paying a babysitter a ton of money, right? So it's like I missed out on all of that and I don't know. I'm bad at the balance, but I have like this huge incentive to want to find a better balance and kind of make up for lost time per se.
Yeah, that's a great point. My kids have made comments like, do you get paid to sit on the computer all day long? I'm like, pretty much. If only it was that easy. But to them, I'm on the computer and that's what I do. I'm on the computer. And so, I've been at like dinners and different things with other people where they're on their devices. So I get where my kids are coming from. But then at the same point, right, we have employers and we have clients who are expecting us to get this work done even though we are home. So it was very difficult. And I was kind of the same with you, Mary, that my kids, I was going to be home when my kids were home, especially coming home from school, but I don't have that free time to just sit there and hang out, from 3:30 to 5. I still have a job to do. So it's very, very difficult. And from their perspective, until they get a real job, they don't, have any concept of that. So it's been interesting. What about you, Belinda? I know you've been working from home for a while. Has
Yeah,
anything really changed for you in this situation?
well, change, no, but one of the things that I do and have done is, well, my office is separate. So when I'm in my office, it's work, work, work. Occasionally I'll come in and work on the weekends and turn the TV on, and then I don't feel quite so much like I'm working. But when I leave this room, that's usually the end of the day for work. I love what I do, so I don't mind piddling on things while I'm watching TV or doing something in the evening, but I don't think of that as work so much. So it's very separated, the big thing for me is getting out of this chair to do something else. And so that's been a tough one for me. And so that's now the bigger difference of what I do. But it's like this room is like there's just a line there. When I walk in this room, it's a different story versus being in the other parts of the house. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Sorry, Shannon. One thing that I just thought of when you were talking about this, Belinda, like you shut the door and you walk out. I think one thing for me is, I shut the door and I walk out, but then there's a time in the evening where it's like, I'm sitting there kind of twiddling my thumbs and I'm like, I could be useful. You know what I'm going to do is I'm totally going to put a lock on my door and I'll give my husband the key and then he can just unlock it like during open, like business hours, and then I won't be able to get back in here and then I'll be forced, to spend time with the kids. And that might help. But one thing I did do that I didn't mention here is I did turn off notifications on my phone for my email. So, not seeing those emails right as they come in keeps me off my work email in the evening and on the weekends just because I'm not getting, those notifications every time I get an email. So that was one thing that helped for me.
It takes practice to walk out the door. Whenever you walk out the door of your office and put work behind you, it takes practice. And I've had a long time to do that. That's kind of where I was talking about doing the laundry, because when I first started, I would work in significantly later. But now when I walk out of the room, I mean, that office is behind me, and it just takes practice to do that. I know that sounds weird, but it definitely takes practice, because um, if you're in a household where you take on the traditional roles of who's responsible for dinner planning, then that's another thing. You start thinking about that when you are first working, about 2 in the afternoon. Oh, how am I going to get dinner done? How am I going to go in there? And the funny thing is, my husband, he's part-time now. The work he does a little bit of programming. He does a lot of work for charity, different charitable organizations, but he mostly plays tennis. But even when he wasn't doing that, I mean, he wasn't sitting there at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon thinking about, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? He waited till he got off work, and then came in to me and said, what are we having for dinner tonight? So that's why he so sweetly makes me ice water now. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing it takes to get over. I mean, we don't do that when we are at work, right? When we're going to the office at work. Boy, shame on me for saying that. When we have an office to go to for work, we don't sit there and think about 3 o'clock. Oh, I should go in and get dinner started, right? And then you're in here working at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So it takes practice.
Yeah, and I think Steve had a really good point. Like, turn off your notifications on everything, not just your cell phone, but like my laptop, I'll hear it ring in here. And I'm like trying to figure out, someone, is it important? Do I need to wait? So that's such a good reminder to everybody. And Kathy was saying her only child, her daughter, is away at college. So she's had her away for over a year. And so like just keeping that in mind too, with as a parent of younger children, Ed had a good point that, not many people, especially, clients all the time, will remember the impact of you working late at night, but your kids will remember you spending time with them. And that was a really good point, especially as our kids get older and will eventually be gone. So I thought that was really, really a good point that they had. So good topic. All right, our next question, and this, Belinda, may not refer to you, but I know you go to conferences and I know you travel and do training as well. But what are your biggest fears in returning to the workplace and travel? And I'll just start off with this one, that I have been traveling. We started back up traveling mid-January. We had a couple go lives for manufacturing where we had to be on site with clients, and we actually had to leave. And I'll be honest, I was a little nervous at first. I have not personally been scared of COVID because I had it back in 19 and I didn't get very sick, but I was just very nervous about like what that would look like and how to approach clients and work with other people and travel and the hotels and just everything. It was just very unusual, and it was very weird the first couple weeks. I feel like it's definitely picked up in travel over the last few weeks. But I think my biggest fear is that it's going to be like a combination workplace where they're going to expect you, to be working from home and working on site. And that just, to me, I like consistency of being in one place. Like I'm either at home or I'm traveling, but the idea of going back and forth between offices and traveling to me is pretty crazy. So, but I've not been very fearful in travel at this point. I was just in Denver for a couple weeks, and I think that's kind of gotten over. I'm just like, what does this life look like, after everyone's vaccinated and we get back into the workplace? So, Kristen, I know you were talking about this a little bit yesterday as you're going to start traveling again too. What are your biggest fears in returning to the workplace?
Yeah, so I'm getting ready to travel here in about a week and a half. And for me, I've been traveling when I can. I've gone to Phoenix, Puerto Rico, Minnesota, and I feel like everybody's taking it pretty seriously. I mean, everybody's wearing masks. You have the few that don't, but for me, think of myself as being healthy enough that maybe it wouldn't affect me more, but I guess maybe that's just because maybe I'm naive about it. But personally, I mean, I don't really have any fears about traveling. You know, more for me is like just giving people the respect of wearing a mask, right? So if I'm going to be traveling or going to a client's office, making sure that I'm wearing a mask the whole time, even if they're like, oh, you don't have to wear it, like still giving them that respect of wearing it. I guess that's not really a fear of mine. It's just more of like a respect thing. But yeah, not really scared to travel. So
Having been on site, it's been or back in an office, I'll have to say one of the hardest things for me is that I'm a hugger and I love to like give handshakes and hugs and like hang out with everybody, and then it's like, you know, finding those boundaries back when you're with people and like, you know, fist pumps or you know, waves when you can't shake. So that's been a little weird. Not a fear, I'm afraid of like making other people feel uncomfortable, I guess is a good way to put it. So it'll be interesting to see how you experience that as you get back, you know, on the road with clients. What about you, Mary?
You know, it's kind of interesting, like fear, right? It's a little bit different to everyone. And I think for me, I was on the road for like so long, well, and not like long compared to y'all, but for like 2 years. And, you know, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but, you know, even in that, like in the last 2 years, you know, I've gotten married and switched from him just being like Mr. Mom to like now that. And so I guess what I'm getting at is it's a lot easier for me to be at home. That is what I've realized. It's a lot easier for me to be at home. So I think my biggest fear is more of, you know, what is that going to look like to leave? And how's that going to feel after being home for so long? Sometimes I don't know, you know, it used to be hard to be on the road like all the time, like you work and then you get back to the hotel room and it's just so empty. And, you know, I was gone from like Sunday night to Friday night, and I really missed both of them so much. So I've said this so many times, but like, there's so many nights I was like crying in like a hotel room, right? And it's just like, I just miss them, and you don't sleep well. So it's just like all this different stuff. It's very high stress, high energy, right? To like be on the road all the time. And I often wondered, like, was all of this worth it, right? Was it worth to be away from them? Maybe like I wasn't meant for this. So I'm super happy to kind of be at home. And so I guess my biggest fear is not ever going back to being constantly on the road and being able to like be on the road when I want to be on the road, but not because I have to, right? So that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was traveling up until the end of February last year, all the time travel like you, and it was kind of nice having a break from that. It's been a little nice traveling but I wish I had a little bit more balance just because how busy I am now. But yeah, it's hard leaving your family for sure. And everyone glorifies travel. You know, when you're younger, you're like, I want to travel for work. It'll be so much fun. But Mary, you can attest to this. You barely see anything in any city you go to. It's like work, eat, go back to your hotel room, probably work some more, and then go to bed. And that's the life on the road. So it's not as glorified as it seemed when we were younger.
Yeah, you probably know where the Target is that you can like pick up all the stuff that you constantly
100%.
miss no matter how many times like you pack, right? Like it's inevitable.
100%. 100%. What about you, Belinda? What are your biggest fears? And for you, Belinda, I know you've been really working from home, but what about conferences and travel for you in general?
Yeah, I don't go to client sites, but I was traveling a lot for various conferences, and so um, I'm at the point now where I'm missing going places, especially conferences and seeing everybody. And I'm like you, I'm a hugger, so that's going to be something a little bit different to get over. But I have been really a big hermit during this whole virus. So I have an underlying health condition that would make it pretty dangerous for me. Plus, I live in a 55 plus community. And in case you're trying to do the math, I'm 56, so I'm barely legal. And so I don't want to be the one to bring it in to anybody, right? Because I have a lot of neighbors that are my age, but I have a lot that are in their 80s and 90s. So as a result, I don't want to be typhoid Mary or COVID Belinda. So I've been pretty careful about that. And then also, I really need to go visit my parents. Neither of my parents are in good health, and my mother has been diagnosed with another illness during the course of this. And I've been to see them twice, and I flew both times. I thought flying would be safer than driving, especially because Delta was like not putting anybody in the seat next to you. So I felt okay about that. And but I wasn't particularly comfortable. I mean, I don't even go in stores. So, but I have had my first shot. I get my next one in a couple weeks. And after that, I'm hoping that that things can start changing for me. So I don't, I'm wondering what the psyche of the last year has done to me as far as traveling. I'm anxious to go somewhere and do something and to see everyone and hang with them. But the reality is I don't know how I'm going to feel mentally if when when I'm at that point. I don't think any of us do that we've all been cooped up. How comfortable do you feel in a store, right? I don't know when I'm willing to go in a restaurant. And I sound like I know I sound a little nuts, but I mean, that's just the reality that we all face now. You know what?
Yeah, and I think it's super real because I have been traveling and like even in the hotel, like nobody's in the lobby, nobody's at the bar. Even in restaurants, everyone's spaced out. It's very capped. Most of the places I've been traveling to Lexington, Kentucky a lot, and a lot of things are still closed down where you have to have a reservation at a restaurant. You can't just walk in, and then the lobbies of most of the fast food places are closed. So it's like even the comfort that I would have had traveling, like to be able to sit at a bar and talk to people, just to have conversation with people outside of work, that's kind of been taken away. And so it's just weird, and getting back into what is probably not going to be a normal for a while is weird as well. And I think conferences is going to be the biggest thing, right? Because we have so many people that come to conferences and we're so jammed in. So how will we do that? And will we be required to have vaccines? Like, it's so weird trying to figure it all out. It's been interesting. But I'm glad you're able to go see your parents, Belinda. That's important.
Yeah, both of my parents have been vaccinated, so my doctor said wait a couple weeks after my second vaccine and then head on out there. But I'm, just in case I feel bad during the second vaccine, I'm not scheduling a lot of work stuff, and I have the whole week ready for a big old pity party if I feel bad. So I should be in good shape.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Christina, oh my goodness. So Christina says she's been going to grad school, doing freelance projects, and having her kids at home from their school. She was supposed to come back to work right when COVID hit, and that became impossible. So she's graduating this spring, and she's really worried about being a woman and being older and trying to return to the workplace with the gap from work. And I think one big thing, Christina, I think Mary put this in the chat too, that's really changed with COVID is it's really leveled the playing field of moms who are working from home. Remember before COVID, like moms who worked from home, everyone's like, how do you do that with kids and you're working from home? And like, I don't think any of the dads really, there were some dads working from home, but most of them weren't. And so it was like you were your own abnormal group. Well, now it's like everyone's working from home. But that's quite an accomplishment to go through school and have your kids at home and do all of this. I know I've been working on certifications and it's very difficult to study and be home and have your family home. So that's a really great job. And I think we're all kind of just nervous coming out of this. I think we were talking today at the VACO office about like if May 1st is truly when the vaccination will be available to everybody, generally available, which is what they're pushing for, that puts us into summer of things maybe being able to return to normal. But what does that look like, and will people feel safe? And will we be required to carry cards around? Like, what does that look like? And I think we're all anxious to see. So I'm excited though. I'm very excited and thankful for that vaccine. I think it'll be really good. Okay, so our next topic is what advice would you give for taking a mental break and relieving stress? And I really struggled with this at the beginning. I'll just kick this one off because, I'm here in my little office area in my house. I don't have a door, and it's very easy for me to get lost in work. I get probably 50 emails an hour on average, and so I can just sit down and knock and I'll work and work and work. And at the very beginning, I was not taking time for myself to kind of relieve that stress and to get out and get some fresh air, or I was just working and then eating and taking care of the house and then going back to work, and it became really obvious that I needed some kind of relief. And so back last May, my gym 9 round opened back up, and everything's spaced out 6 feet anyway, normally, and they only allow so many people in the gym anyway. So it was like perfect for me to get back to the gym, and I started kickboxing again. I felt so much better. I've been on the road, so now I've been trying to take walks, but I think this is so important because, I think Mary and Kristen and I, we've been talking about how like everything's been so busy. It's been so stressful, like mentally, we just need a break. And so what is everyone doing for self-care during this COVID time? And Belinda, I'll start with you.
I know this sounds crazy, but I go to Sonic and get me a big Route 44 unsweetened iced tea because I got the good chewy ice. And just getting in the car, oh yeah, I see Sharon giving the thumbs up. Just getting in the car and getting out and going, and it just makes you feel a little bit better. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Although I am looking forward to April 1st, our pool opens. So that when the pool's open, we go to the pool. Nobody ever gets in the shallow end, so we just go and hang out in the shallow end, my husband and I, for about an hour, and that also rejuvenates.
Yeah, that's great. I know our pool had limits last year on who could come in. They're still trying to decide that, but my kids were just talking the other day, like we can't wait for the pool because the pool feels like summer and it feels normal. And I think that's a great way to realign your brain, get some sunshine. So that's really good. What about you, Mary?
I think it is important to get away. I kind of like to, I've noticed that a long weekend or just like not working on the weekend isn't as refreshing as like it once was, right? Like it's more of like actually getting out and away from the house. I used to not need to like travel away, right? Because I was gone all the time. So it was more relaxing to like be home. But now we went to Florida a few weeks ago and we came over the water and it was all like that turquoise blue water and sandy beaches, and I just felt different inside. I don't know how to explain, you know what I mean? Just like this, like overall, like relief and happiness, and something I didn't realize that was like weighing so heavy on me, and just the sunshine and everything felt so good. My husband and I have been talking about like, okay, where are we going next? Even if it's like a long weekend. My son I think he's gonna go out of town for spring break. So I'm like, meh, maybe we can take a long weekend somewhere. So I think getting away from the house, whether it be for a long weekend or something to that extent, because we spend so much time here that it's no longer, it's like the same reason I think you're not supposed to work in bed, right? Like that's where you're supposed to sleep. Like your house is where you're supposed to relax.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I just got back from Denver and spent a couple days by myself, and gosh, I needed that. Like just no work, no technology, no nothing. And that was so weird after living this COVID lifestyle for the last year. But it was so much needed. So just getting out of your house, like Belinda said, just go to Sonic. If you can't take a trip, go to Sonic, or go through a drive-through and get out of your house. That's a really good point. What about you,
Mary,
Kristen?
you're close enough, Mary. You could come, we could go to the beach. I went one day to the beach and I just sat on the beach for 10 minutes. I swear it did me good for a couple months. Like
Yeah.
2 months after that, I felt much better.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, it's gonna be warm this weekend. I've got a hackathon this weekend, but I'm hoping like Sunday will be warm and we can go and be outside for the day.
Anya says her
Yes,
husband's making a cameo appearance before Kristen talks.
that's,
Your husband wants to
uh,
be on, he can be on.
yeah, bring them on, Anya. So one of the things that I do is I block off my calendar in the afternoon when I have to go get the boys from school. So what I do is school gets out at 3:55. I leave my house at 3 and I get there and, you know, all the moms and all the parents are lined up. And my friend and I decided we were going to get clever because living in the mountains are like, I don't have service on my phone there. So typically I'm not on my phone. I'm not checking emails at that time because I just don't have service. But what we do is we sit in our vehicles with walkie-talkies, and we are the moms in the carpool line on our walkie-talkies, and we could care less. Like it's hilarious. We have a blast with it. But like that's my mental break. And like today, you know, I had to ask my husband this morning, I was like, you can go get the boys for me today, right? And he's like, no, you're going to go get them because you need a break. And I'm like, oh, I can't, I have this thing. And he's like, okay. But he's really good about like realizing that that's really my only, you know, even if it's 40, 45 minutes of me chatting with my girlfriend on a walkie-talkie, that's really my only time away from home, away from work, because my phone don't work. But yeah, that's how I get my mental break, I guess, is as silly as that is. I saw a lot of you laughing though. You're like, oh, I didn't think about that. But that's a good one.
That's a very good one, and I wish I could hear some of those conversations because I know you very well, Kristen. So that's probably really, really entertaining, actually, and a cute idea when you don't have a phone or some way to entertain yourself. So I think that's really good. And I know a lot of people are saying, I'm just kind of reading the comments in the chat, which is really great, but a lot of people saying take a break from technology. I've tried to do this too, Anya, where I'm like, Saturday is my day where I don't work like at all, like whatever the case may be. And I even try to shut that off Friday night, like Friday night to Saturday evening is like a no work zone, which is very difficult to do sometimes, but I need that break mentally to get away. And a lot of people are saying go to the water, and I think the water is so healing for me. The beach is healing. I enjoy the mountains, and so being up there and seeing Kristen last week and being up in Denver was very, very healing for me. Just a whole day of skiing was pretty much what I needed. So yeah, if you can take a break somehow from your kids, from your work, from your life, and just get out. You know, I think exercise too has been huge for me, just to not mentally snap. And that's a good way to put it, because it's at times it's very, very, you know, overwhelming. So our last question today, and I really liked this meme. Chuck Norris has been exposed to the coronavirus. The virus is now in quarantine for the next 2 weeks. I really love that one. I love Chuck Norris memes. But what advice would you give to yourself, your past self, in the fall of 2019 if you could go back in time? Because I keep thinking like, we didn't see this coming. We obviously didn't see this coming. In fact, Kristen and I were presenting at Summit in fall of 2019. We didn't have any clue this was going to happen. I was actually going through an acquisition right before it happened, and I don't think any of us could have saw it coming. But what advice would you give to yourself, you know, back in fall of 19 on just being in the world that we were in before we got to COVID? So what would you say to yourself? And Kristen, I'll let you go first.
Gosh, that's a tough one. And how easy is it to give advice versus how hard it is to actually follow your own advice, right? I think for me, my advice would be to slow down. And the reason I say that is because I feel like the last 4 to 5 years of my career, I've been working a lot, and I've missed a lot. Like I've missed my kids growing up, and you know, the same struggles we're having today, right? But also with that, you know, kind of slowing down comes like making sure you appreciate everything, right? Like I was just in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago, and my son, we were at this old fort, and my youngest, my 8-year-old's like, Mom, take a picture, take a picture. And I found myself like, no, I'm not going to pull my phone out and take a picture. Like sit here and look at it, like take it in, like take a mental picture, right? Like slow down, and just kind of take it in. And I think that's like my advice is just slow down. It was good advice in 2019. It's good advice now in 2021 as well.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Slowing down. And I think life did slow down, which maybe is what we all needed for a little bit of time. So it was, relieving. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, it's funny, it is important to slow down, and I kind of I feel like my advice would be like just trust that everything happens for like a reason, right? Like even if it doesn't make sense right now, because go back to I lost my job in April of I guess 2020, right? So last April things were getting like really crazy, especially like turbulent in the workplace. And then, I was out of work for 4 months, or no, 3 months. And that was a pretty scary place to be, especially like when you work all the time and like you find you part of your identity, right? And like part of your like passion is around like what you do for work. And you don't have that to relate to, right? And it seemed catastrophic. But when I stopped and thought about it, like it really wasn't happy where I was at anyways, in many different reasons, or for many different reasons. I was gone all the time, all these different things. And so it was nice to see that in the end everything worked out for the better, right? And I'm much happier, and I think my career has, in fact been a lot better, like I said earlier, because of it. So I think that would be my 2019 advice. It's just like keep your chin up and know that it's going to go for a better reason and a better place.
That's a really good one. It's a really, really good one. What about you, Belinda?
Well, first I would invest in Lysol and a couple of hand sanitizer companies. So that's the first thing I do, some short-term investing there. But I think I would do exactly what Anya suggested. I think I would go on a quick, really good, amazing vacation and go and do something that would enable me to enjoy it. Enjoy life a little bit. Who is it that said they would hug a lot of people? Was that Marin? Yeah.
Marion.
Yeah, give
Mhm.
everyone a big hug. Yeah. Definitely that. But I think the big thing is I would go somewhere that a vacation that I could mentally live off of for a couple months. And so that would probably be a big one. Thank you, Anya,
Yeah,
for
I think I think Anya says not a quick trip, a long trip.
a
'Cause
long one.
you
Yeah.
time to work now. Yeah, and I think I'm with you guys vacationing, like taking the trips, but to me, like I think that I took for granted like being around people and speaking at conferences and having so much social time with friends and being able to hug and all of that and we took that all for granted, right? And now we're in this world where it's just not going to be possible for a little while longer. And so I think I would have said, just enjoy every minute of it. I know we had a lot of fun at the conferences in the fall of 2019, so I feel like I got a lot of that. But yeah, just take time and enjoy those vacations. And I think after this is over, personally, people are just going to start to travel like crazy, right? Because everyone's so sick of their house. So it'll be exciting to see what happens after that. And Sharon says she'd have a huge party. Huge party. So, and Indra says she's at work listening to you all at the moment. Oh, well, we're so glad you joined us. That's so fun. So I just want to open the floor. We're at the end of our questions. We've got a few minutes. Anyone else have any advice that you give to yourself if you want to take yourself off mute? What would you tell yourself back in 2019? What to do before all this happened? Or if you just want to open the mic and talk about something else, that's fine too.
Carrie Peters, don't type. Come off mute and talk to us.
I would say, remember that if it's not important 10 years from now, it's not important today. It's my new mantra.
That's a really good one. That's really, really, really good. I really like that. Wow.
You too.
What about you, Steve? I saw Steve was on here.
Oh, I'm getting called on.
We
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
can hear you.
I think if I had hindsight, I'd tell myself to chill out. If I could actually listen to that advice and not be stressed through, what was it? Who knows? March through summer, right? How stressful that was. It was kind of scary. So, but it turned out okay. I survived. So if I could have chilled out during those months, that would have been nice. Probably would have saved a few gray hairs.
What a lot of people don't know is Steve's wife is a nurse, and he banned her to the back porch. She lived on the back porch, and the rest of him and his daughters lived in the house.
Yeah, because we didn't know she was still seeing patients, and she's having to go out looking like a medieval knight in PPE, and she's coming home, and that was back when you're like, okay, hose yourself down before you come in the house, and so we just didn't know. And she works 12 to 14 hours a day. I've got the kids at home. I'm trying to run 3 businesses, and moderately stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve, you handled that like a pro. I mean, you were on blogging and getting into BC development all while all that was happening, working in parks. I mean, I have to
Those are my
hand it to you.
distractions. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to get out of the house. And taking the kids out, going to the park, doing little side projects. It keeps you busy, and you move on. So
I'm thankful to your wife for being one of the frontline workers during all of this, because that's super stressful on your family, and I think everyone's appreciative of that. It's a really
yeah.
really good advice.
Now she's like, no big deal. I'm like, yeah. Easy to say now, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Ed, any advice you give?
So when the slide first came up, I was like, oh yeah, right away, buy toilet paper. But then, I started getting more serious about it and thinking about all the people that were lost and we'll say unnecessarily. So it would really just be to have an appreciation for all those moments, because so quickly things can change. And that's why I made that comment earlier about focusing on the moments that matter, right? So that's it. Sorry to bring you down.
Oh, that was amazing advice, especially to those of us with young kids that are spending time working on screens rather than spending time hanging out with them. I think it was pretty powerful. And, we didn't know, and we still don't know, if any of us are that susceptible to this, if you haven't gotten it already. So, that's super good advice. Anyone else?
It's a pandemic, Ed. It takes a lot more than that to bring us down anymore.
Right. Everybody's got a new scale, right?
Yeah, it's a different scale.
It's facts. It's facts. Anybody else?
I wish that I
Awesome.
had planned better for like exercising through Iowa winters, because before, I would just go for a daily walk or run or something like that. And then when winter hit and just being indoors all the time, it just created a whole host of problems.
Oh yeah.
Everybody,
that's
you can't
difficult.
go outside. It's negative 10 degrees. You're doing nothing. You all are stuck inside forever.
Well, hopefully it's warming up a little bit where you're getting a little bit of spring where you're at. That's awesome. Yeah, I was in Denver the last 2 weeks with bizarro weather. Glad to be back in the South with some warm temperatures. But that's hard being stuck in your house with that, for sure.
Yeah, I think if I had planned for it better, it would have been great. It would have been not great, but it would have been easier. And now that it's warming up, it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, okay, I need to get out. I need sunshine. I need exercise. And I think knowing that in hindsight would be better preparation for anything else for those winters.
Yeah, 100%. And Kristen said, let's all try to work on mental health this week. So work from home mental health, use that hashtag this week and remind ourselves to take a break. That's a really good point, Kristen. And I know there's a couple people out there promoting mental health during this pandemic that's still going on. So important. But yeah, I think we've made it through 14 months. I'd appreciate everyone for joining today. What a great conversation, and so nice seeing some new faces. If you're new to the group, we do this monthly live, which is exciting. So we'll have an announcement on who our guest speaker is next month. And you can follow us all on Twitter and follow us and see when the next event is. So thanks everybody for coming out, the great feedback. Belinda, thank you for joining us as always. It's always a pleasure. And we appreciate all the feedback in the chat. It's been really fun.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Well.